This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Norwegian Escape this week. Yeah, we did one about, 6 or 8 weeks ago, but this one is a New York City one, and kind of a weird twist here because there was a storm in the area as this cruise was sailing. So that's coming up. Also, staff writer Richard Sims here with Cruise News, and Dan Skilken, president of tripinsurance.com, gives us some information about how travel insurance comes into play surrounding the air traffic control delays and cancellations. So first off, staff writer Richard Sims. Hey there.
Hey, Doug.
We start this week with a tragedy that is also a little bit of a mystery at the time of recording.
I was just going to say that at the time of recording is very important because, depending on when you listen to this, there may be more information. The mystery may have been solved. But as of right now, we don't know a lot about this except an 18-year-old woman was found dead on board the Carnival Horizon. And as of this recording, that's like almost all we know. Her name was Anna Kepner, and by all accounts, she was the type of young person who was on track for, she was on a great track. She was an A student. She was planning to join the military after school. There's no word on exactly how she died. One interesting thing is that the FBI is involved in the investigation. According to several news stories, these type of things are usually handled by sort of the local branch of the FBI or the local authorities. So to have the big branch of the FBI kind of immediately step in may eventually turn out to be an important detail. But right now, there's really no information about the circumstances surrounding Kepner's death. So, probably I'm assuming that by next week's show, we will have more information. But as of recording, that's really all that's known.
You know what's infuriating about this whole thing, Richard? The photos I'm seeing out there with the little girl, like within the body bag and things like that does not need to be shown or seen. And I don't care how many clicks, how many views, whatever you're trying to get. it's disgusting.
I completely agree. We live in an age where everybody has a camera, obviously. Someone famous once said there's basically a camera pointed at you every minute of the day. And you see it everywhere you go. A tragedy is unfolding and people whip out their cameras. And it has just become human instinct or inhumane instinct, depending on how you want to put it. But yeah, I've seen that as well. And it's just very cringy.
Speaking of tragic incidents, we have a good example here of just how dangerous the ocean can actually be.
Yeah, this is a little bit crazy. So, I know that many people, myself included, I love standing on the edge of the ocean. And when I was on the Queen Mary 2 last year, I took a trip all the way from Boston to Rockport, Massachusetts, just to stand on the rocks and watch the waves crash. We're fascinated by the ocean, but it's also, this story is also a good reminder that it's a powerful, powerful force. So, this happened on a pier in Puerto de la Cruz, which is near Tenerife, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's on the island of Tenerife.
Okay. And there was a shore excursion for cruise passengers who were visiting. They were sort of touring the area and they were standing on a pier, and a massive wave slammed into the pier and it sent a group of tourists into the Atlantic Ocean. About 10 different people went into the ocean because of this giant wave. And one person was unfortunately killed. Their body eventually washed up on shore. The area was under a red alert, meaning that there were potential for waves to be up to 15 feet in height. So I will be surprised if we don't see some kind of lawsuit come out of this with people suing the tour operator that put them in this position. Because, if you've got potential for 15-foot waves, you don't want to be standing somewhere that this could happen, this exact same thing. So I don't know. I feel like, again, like I said, we all know the ocean is a powerful thing, but there are certain circumstances where you really have to be very aware of it. I don't know about you, but I have, on one occasion at least, been swept into the ocean. I was doing exactly the kind of thing that we always report people falling off ships about. I was taking a picture, and I wanted to be as close to the crashing waves as I possibly could. And I was standing on top of a rock, and a huge wave came and swept me out to sea. This was on the shore in Massachusetts. And at first I thought it was funny, but then the waves kept coming and were bashing me into the rocks. And thank God I had a friend there who was able to pull me out. But it was a really scary experience. And it really taught me to be very aware when around the ocean that it's beautiful, but it's also powerful and potentially deadly.
And a situation which could have been far worse had a relatively happy ending in the DR.
Yeah, according to the Navy of the Dominican Republic, the incident happened last Sunday and involved around 50 cruise ship passengers who were, again, on a shore excursion. They were on a catamaran called the Boca de Llama. The ship reportedly hit something in the water and began to sink. Now, there is an investigation ongoing, so, there's different stories about what happened, but it left about 50 passengers to jump into the ocean as this catamaran was sinking. The guests on board were from the Mein Schiff 1, which is a cruise ship operated by TUI Cruises. Fortunately, there were only very minor injuries sustained by a few guests. All of them were pulled from the water, and upon returning to the ship, and this is how you know it wasn't terribly serious, upon returning to the ship, everybody agreed, okay, let's just set sail and go. There was no, there were no real severe repercussions. There were no serious injuries. There is, of course, an investigation into exactly what happened so that the incidents can be potentially avoided in the future. The cruise line went out of their way to say that this was an external shore excursion, which I believe the way they are using it, and I am not 100% sure of this, but I believe the way they are using it and the reason they are saying it that way is that it was not a cruise excursion booked through them. The implication being that, hey, if you book through someone else or if you do a solo thing, they might not be as well vetted as something that we ourselves have vetted and you are booking through us. Again, I am not 100% sure of that, but that's certainly the way that their statement read, was that, like I said, they went out of their way to say that it was an external shore excursion. But in this case, all's well that ends well, and we're just glad to be able to say that everybody was okay there. They were able to continue on their cruise.
And Virgin Voyages is stepping up to help passengers impacted by the ongoing government shutdown.
I love this story because that I really enjoy being able to report when our cruise lines do the right thing. So often we're reporting on, things that maybe are wonky, but this is a good story. Now, it bears mentioning that between now, when we are recording this, and you listen to this, the government shutdown could be over. But even if it is, even if the shutdown ends right this minute, it is going to take a while to get things back on track because, there were so many flight cancellations. In fact, Doug, I think you just had flight cancellations, right?
Yesterday, I was trying to get home from Miami, which is a 6-hour drive from Jacksonville. But I'm like, I'm going to fly this time because it's only a 50-minute flight. The first flight was canceled. Then the second flight was canceled. And then I spent 11 hours in the Admirals Club at the Miami airport. But it could have been worse. I could have been just in the regular airport walking laps in Terminal Deep. So at least I had a lounge. But dude, there were some people fired up, man. There were people going to San Francisco, San Diego, Vegas, I think Boise, and they were coming off cruise ships. And they were there for 2 days already. They just couldn't get out.
It's crazy. You had to go what is the equivalent of a 6-hour drive? And in the same time that you were trying to get home, Gary flew from Newark all the way to Delhi, India. So he got all the way there quicker than you were able to get, a couple 100 miles. But what's happening here is that Virgin, seeing this going on, one of the problems is if you are flying to get on a ship and your flight is canceled, guess what? You're not getting on that ship. And there goes your vacation. Flights are canceled left and right, and Virgin Voyages is helping guests who've had flights canceled. They released a statement on Monday, which reads in part, if your flight gets canceled and you can't make your voyage, reach out to Sailor Services with your airline cancellation confirmation, and we'll grant you an immediate future voyage credit. They're also offering to help people rebook those future cruises. This is just really, really, really good customer service, which I love to see. Now, they are not going to cover your canceled flight, of course. They're not responsible for that. But if you have travel insurance, which every single one of you should have, because Doug and I talk about it just about every week, then that should cover it. So between the travel insurance, now usually we've seen so many situations where people get upset because they missed their cruise for one reason or another. And the cruise line is like, well, not our problem. You should have been here. We left without you. But in this case, they are literally saying, we understand that a lot of you are going to have trouble. Let us help you. And I just think that is absolutely incredible.
And outside of this Virgin story, because they are doing the right thing, there is a couple of caveats or some fine print with the travel insurance. And it's just across the board, no matter what the company is, they're all kind of joining together with this, that if your trip interruption happens the day you're scheduled to fly out, you're going to be covered. But let's say I get a cancellation today and my trip starts tomorrow, they're not going to cover that. It's an interesting thing, and I actually have Dan Skilkin, the president of tripinsurance.com, coming on later on today to talk about this exact thing, because it's very confusing, but it is important to know. And hopefully this gets resolved. We don't have to worry about this much longer, but it's important to know when you're covered and when you're not. Just wanted to add that, Richard.
I'm really glad you did. I actually want to listen to that because I'm curious about the fact that, if your flight is tomorrow and it's canceled today, that you're not going to be covered. I'm really interested in that. So I look forward to hearing what Dan has to say.
And on Monday night, Disney Cruise Line welcomed their newest ship to the fleet.
Yeah, they did what they do best. And for those who don't know, what Disney does best is put on a show, or maybe I should say spectacle, because that's what they did Monday evening at the christening party for their new ship, the Disney Destiny, which is going to be home ported in Port Everglades in Fort Lauderdale. And that's where the actual party took place. The godmother sang. She's Susan Egan, who, if you're a Disney fan, you know this, but she was the first Belle when they did the Broadway adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. So she performed a bunch of songs, all of which played into the ship's theme of heroes and villains, which, by the way, is a very, very cool theme. I kind of almost want a whole ship devoted only to the villains because I love Disney villains. And, we're getting that new land at Disney World that's going to be all about villains. So maybe one day we'll get a ship that doesn't have any heroes, just has the villains. And that would be a very fun trip to take. Anyway, the night also included a very cool drone show. Their fireworks, they're very well known for, I believe they are still the only cruise line, certainly the only American cruise line that does fireworks at sea. And the reason they were able to do that is they use these special fireworks that, instead of spewing debris into the ocean, the fireworks are made out of fish food. So fish actually can eat them, which is super cool. And because it's Disney and Disney is so good at this stuff, they also streamed the entire thing live on their Instagram and on their websites and stuff. So even if you couldn't be there to actually enjoy the ceremony, you still got to watch the whole thing unfold, which is kind of a lot of fun.
And speaking of christenings, another ship was welcomed in this week, and the ceremony had a rather unusual twist.
Did somebody say tequila? No? Okay, well, I'm about to, because when Matthew McConaughey and his wife Camilla helped christen the Star Princess, the ship, to which they are godparents, they kind of shook things up a little bit. Instead of smashing a bottle of champagne against the hull, as you usually do at a christening, they actually smashed this huge, massive bottle of tequila. Now, you might be asking why. Well, it's because the McConaugheys are the co-founders of Pantalones Tequila, which happens to have a partnership with Princess Cruises. So it all factored in together. Tequila also factored into the post-christening party because they had a giant ice sculpture that was serving as a tequila shot station. I don't know if you've ever seen this kind of thing before, but when I went to the grand opening of Disney's California Adventure, they had one of these. The ice sculpture is designed in such a way that you pour the drink of your choice in the top and it flows through the sculpture. And when it comes out at the bottom, it's nice and ice cold. Very, very cool. They also had some of their celebrity chefs who have restaurants on various ships there, and there was a lot of food. So yeah, it sounded like this was a very, very fun party.
after McConaughey christened and before the Sheryl Crow concert, they did have a little event in the very front of the ship up there. And I was walking by the ice sculpture and I was watching people. Well, the bartender was pouring McConaughey's tequila on there. And there were people with cups on the bottom of this sculpture. I'm like, what in the hell are they doing?
Yes.
And just what you said. They were getting some ice cold tequila from the bartender after it kind of made its way through this weird winding path down the ice sculpture.
What's really funny is after a while, or after people have been drinking for a while, people sort of decide not to use cups and they just put their mouth on the bottom of the ice, which is kind of gross, but they just put their mouth on the bottom of the ice and the tequila goes right down their throat. I'm not saying I did that at Disney, but I'm saying there were people who did it, and one of them might have been me.
Or they drink too much and go to the casino.
Yes.
All right, staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thank you, my friend.
As always, talk to you next time you're back home somewhere.
And as we mentioned a couple of moments ago, I got a soundbite from Dan Skilkin, president of tripinsurance.com, breaking down traveling during the shutdown with the ATC issues and the long lines at TSA or what have you. So this is what Dan shared with me, how travel insurance would come into play here if you were impacted by these delays or cancellations.
With the latest announcement from the FAA that they're going to begin cutting 10% of all flights between major airports, I checked with the claims departments of our underwriters to see how they're going to handle this. Remember, the general travel insurance plans have two coverage periods. One period is before your departure date and time. This is when cancellation coverage is effective. And then the second period is after your departure date and time. This is when travel delay, misconnection, trip interruption, travel medical, and baggage coverage begins. So most travel insurance plans have language that covers misconnections and general flight delays, but this coverage only begins after your departure date. And your departure date is defined as the date and time of your initial departure for the trip. So you're definitely covered if your return flight is canceled. You're going to be covered for travel delay or a misconnection, potentially for trip interruption also. But if your initial outbound flight is canceled in advance of the trip starting, you would not be covered for misconnection, travel delay, or trip interruption because the benefit period for that portion of the coverage won't have begun yet. Now, airlines will provide you a refund, and they're going to do their best to reschedule you, but during the Thanksgiving holiday, that's going to be really tough. So I asked the claims department if you could buy travel insurance now, even though they've announced the 10% reduction, but your flight hasn't been canceled yet. And US Fire told me, yes, you can buy the travel insurance now. If you purchase the plan before you're notified of the cancellation, you will be covered. But again, it's subject to whether the cancellation occurs after the date and time of your initial departure. My advice is to get insurance. Covering your domestic flights with travel insurance is not very expensive, and your return flights will definitely be covered. But if you have connecting flights on your departure date, there may be interruptions or last-minute shuffling of departure slots that could cancel your connecting flight, and you would be covered if the cancellation occurs after you've departed on the trip.
Very good. Dan Skilkin, president of tripinsurance.com. As always, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us.
The world is constantly changing. Your place for news is still the same. Online and on demand at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
Last month, Jason took a sailing on Norwegian Cruise Line's Norwegian Escape. It was supposed to be a nice long cruise, but it spent a couple of days in the harbor and then made its way south to the Bahamas. We'll get to all that in just a little bit, though. But first, Jason, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great to talk to you again. So give us some pre-cruise thoughts. You live in New York. You're taking this cruise out of New York. What made you want to take this 10-nighter on Norwegian Escape?
Well, there's a couple. My wife's a teacher, so we have limited weeks that we can actually go on the ships. And she was teaching summer school, so this was our little window of opportunity. And we were really excited when we saw such a wonderful itinerary from New York. You know, cruising out of New York, you do a lot of Bahamas and Bermuda over and over again. Having that nice itinerary with all those different stops really made it a great cruise to choose.
Yeah, certainly. Now, when you drive in to the cruise port there, do you actually pay the $40 a night at the garage there to park your car, or do you do something off-site?
So I normally actually do. I normally park at the port. On this particular cruise, my father-in-law Skip drove us down just because he was able to do it. And doing the 10 days, $45 a day was going to be $450 to park. You know, so it was just easier for us to use the father-in-law card and get a ride down there and pick up at the end.
So do you roll in their day of?
Yeah, we went the morning of. We had already known of the itinerary change at that point, but you know there was no reason to delay getting on the ship for us. We wanted to start our vacation.
Yeah. You know what's crazy, Jason, is that before Brilliant Lady, I boarded that back in September, and the hotel rates in Manhattan were crazy. The cheapest rate, it was like a travel lodge. It was $569 a night. And it went up to the thousands from there. And it might have just been the time of year I was there, but I was like, okay, I'm just going to get a hotel at Resorts World out here at JFK where it's like $158 a night for the high.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
I mean, even with staying at Resorts World and taking the Uber into the cruise terminal for Brilliant Lady, I was still like $300 ahead. So, yeah, it was. It's wild how much those rates are in the city these days.
Yeah,
but
I travel a lot for work, so I could actually cheat and do a lot of things with hotels for my hotel rewards and all that. But my wife she just can't. She wants to leave the day of. Yeah. So she makes me get up super early and just do it, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we cruise out of New York. It's very convenient.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really easy for us to do it.
How was the boarding process right there at the Pier 88? Because it has a tendency to be hit or miss. Sometimes I've seen it like people who are right there queued up all the way to the next ship that's in the harbor. How was it for you? And how long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
So this one was a little bit unique, Doug. It was coming up from Florida empty. Mm-hmm. So the ship didn't come up with passengers. It was a 2 days with no passengers on it. So the moment we got to the port was 9 a.m. We shuttled inside for a 9:30 check-in time, and they just had us basically walk onto the ship.
Oh,
it took
that's awesome.
7 minutes from end to end, from all the way from the sidewalk all the way onto the ship.
That ship's about a decade old at this point now. What were your first impressions once you kind of snaked your way through the hallways and got there to the atrium? You
know, Escape is a great ship. I love the layout of it. It's so beautiful. The center of it is wide open. It has great restaurants. A lot of ships have different smoking issues and stuff like that. It doesn't not have that issue, but it is a lot better than I think a lot of the other ships. It has a great vibe. It's just overall a beautiful ship. I really enjoyed the MCL Escape. What kind of stateroom did you have for this 10-night cruise, and how was it through your sailing? So we did a balcony stateroom. I believe we were on deck 14, port side. It was nice. We don't mind doing interior rooms. We had gotten a good deal to upgrade to a balcony for an extra couple $100. So we jumped on it. But we enjoyed the room. It had decent, plenty of space to put your stuff away. The closets were big enough. The stateroom attendant was attentive and took care of us. It overall was a great experience. When you're up there on deck 14, are you on the same deck or close to the same deck as the buffet area? You just have to basically go out of your room where I was and go up 2 flights to get there. Not bad. And how was the Garden Cafe and the crowd situation during your voyage? I was on a sailing that had with a lot of kids because it was an off school week. With that being said, though, I never felt overwhelmingly crowded at the buffet. I felt like we were always able to get seats fairly close to where all the action was. From a cleanliness standpoint, there was people attentive and cleaning up as soon as people were done. They had staff walking around seeing if you wanted drinks, and they always had attendants over by the ice cream, so the kids couldn't lose their mind over there. Nice.
And how was the food served in there?
Let me tell you, I think that this NCL does a great job with the buffet in general. They had like a ramen type bar where you could make your own little soups and stuff like that. That was nice. It was always kept tidy. Those kind of areas where people are scooping stuff into bowls can get real messy real quick. They had a wonderful mix of Indian and American food. I didn't find any issues with either freshness or quality any time that I used the buffet. My wife, who's very skeptic on stuff like that, she was always happy with the buffet on this trip.
And for their quote-unquote main dining rooms, what are the dining rooms called?
Savor, Taste, and the Manhattan Room.
How was the dining in there and also the service?
The service was decent. You know, if you we went one night at the busier times for dinner around 6:30 p.m. And it took a little bit longer than I normally want it to for dinner time. But the time that I was eating, it was to be expected. Overall, the food, all three places shared the same menu. So there wasn't a ton of differences or a bunch of choices, but everything they had that I tried was really tasty.
When it comes to those three restaurants there, Manhattan, Savor, and Taste, do you just go to the one that's the least crowded to be sat because it's all the same menu?
Taste and Savor are right next to each other. They're literally mirror images of each other side to side. Manhattan Room seems to be more of a traditional cruise ship dining room experience, to where it has live music and, you know, the people that are serving you will start dancing around and throwing the towels in the air and stuff, and people get into it. It always seems to be a little bit more dressy. People seem to get dressed up a little bit more in there. But in the end, it's really whatever your preference is. I usually just pick whatever has the smallest lines.
Sure. How about specialty dining you may have done during this 10-night voyage?
We did pretty good. We had 4 included. Plus, we met some really nice people on the ship that weren't going to use theirs that were able to gift them to us.
Nice.
So I was able to pretty much go to all the specialty dining other than the seafood restaurant on the ship this cruise. I had a really good experience at all of them.
So then how was Cagney's?
Cagney's was your typical steakhouse experience. You know, the food is all good. I like steakhouses. I don't think the ones on the cruise ships are much different than the ones on land. But the food was good. It smells great in there all the time. And they had a wonderful chocolate caramel cheesecake thing that makes you rethink your whole diet process.
And then the Brazilian steakhouse?
The Brazilian steakhouse, you know, it's on its last year. It's not going to make it past the dry dock. Mm-hmm. They're going to be making that whole area into Cagney's back there. So I wanted to at least try to get to there once more before that happened. And it was still good. The salad bar is still the home run that it always was there. It seems like they don't come around as quick as they used to, but it could have also just been the time that I was there.
And then you have that, the French restaurant, is it Le Bistro?
Le Bistro. So Le Bistro, in my opinion, is one of the 2 best restaurants I've been to at sea. It's between that and 150 Central Park, in my opinion, is the best restaurant experience. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed the food there. It's literally the only reason I bring pants when I go on a cruise, because I know I'm going to need them to eat in Le Bistro. And the food was great. I had French onion soup, the typical stuff that I guess a person who doesn't eat much French food would order, you know, French onion soup. I tried some of the steak they had there. It was just phenomenal.
Question about La Cucina. First off, I'm not a foodie at all. Let me just preface by saying that. But is that menu a very basic, your typical Italian restaurant menu, or does it have menu items that you can't really even figure out what they are without Googling them?
So it's very typical, you know, chain food restaurant type of menu. They have plenty of decent offerings on there. The food that they have is good, but there's nothing crazy. It'll have your typical chicken parmesan type things. There's an ossobuco there that's really, really good. It's somewhere you can bring kids to because they have the basic foods also that they're going to like. And I think that there's nothing there that's going to, you know, something I would make special plans for, but I would always include them if I had a few dining packages available because the food is good.
I'm curious of your thoughts on Food Republic. It was the first time I experienced it last year, and I was blown away by the samplings, especially like the Thai dishes in there. What were your thoughts?
I love how many different items you can order there. Me and my wife used to like to cheat there a little bit. They used to let you split one dining credit there because they would bring all those plates. They stopped letting you do that. So you have to get the mountain of food. But man, all those different, the Thai offerings, that soup that they have, it was just, it's all real tasty. I like it, and it's great service. The people that work there are always nice and attentive and quick. That one has pinchos. I did eat there too. That's one of, I love pinchos. I feel like it's so underrated, and you can go there pretty much any time because it's never busy. But I think that the food that they have there is always great. Everything they make is fresh, and they make it basically right there in front of you. And the little plates that they make are just really nice. It's a unique experience versus just the typical stuff you'd eat at a restaurant at home.
At Pinchos, can you do dinner there and have a filling meal, or is it more like a lunch or a kind of an in-between meal between lunch and dinner?
So it's very, you can make it into just a lunch afternoon snack place, but when you're using like a dining credit, it's going to be similar to ordering at Food Republic, where you're going to order a bunch of different plates. Okay. So there's overall plenty of food coming your way.
When you say a bunch of different plates, and I can't remember this from Food Republic, do they give you a limit, or can you just have at it?
So when you have the dining package, I believe it was 4 items per person.
Okay. Gotcha.
4 items per person. I believe that was for both Food Republic and Pinchos. So, between me and my wife, we have 8 little plates there, and there's plenty going on. It's plenty to have a full dinner.
And of course, we have to talk about O'Sheehan's, which is the pub on board. What'd you think?
I mean, O'Sheehan's is a great place. You can't say nothing bad about it. Not many places you can go to at 2:30 in the morning and have a fresh Reuben sandwich other than O'Sheehan's. Right. If you had a couple too many drinks at the Skyline bar, you can go there and have some food before you go upstairs. And the food's always good. It's always fresh, and the people there are always nice. Is
there a sushi bar on this one?
I believe that in this one they use the teppanyaki. It doubles as a sushi. It does not have a separate sushi bar area.
Gotcha. Okay. So then how was the entertainment on this 10-night cruise, and what did you think of it?
I mean, it has Choir of Man, which I don't know if you've seen that one, Doug. It's an amazing show. They get it's interactive with the crowd. They get you involved. It's a show about an English style pub. You go on stage and they serve you beer. The actors are bringing beer, down to you during the show. The songs are fun. It's overall, it's one of the best shows I think that any cruise ship has. They also had a comedian on board that it was 2 of them. They were both pretty good. I laughed a lot. And so, cruise ship comedies hit or miss, but these ones both were really good. And they had a lot of live music throughout the ship at the atrium and at the Skyline bar and outside. Like at H2O.
There's been this consolidation of entertainment on NCL ships. Did you notice different entertainers joining different ensembles or whatnot, cross-utilizing musicians is what I'm trying to say?
So I did notice that because the Choir of Man and the Rumors show is the same people.
Okay.
NCL did a great thing. They've moved Rumors from that small Sid Norman's place to the main theater, which made it accessible basically for everyone. And the show was great, but you do notice that they did consolidate some of the acts. They have the people that are in the one show doing some work in the other. But I didn't see them doing any performances away from the theater.
It's good to hear. What'd you think of Rumors? That was such a great show, in my opinion.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I've been on Escape 4 other times, and I hadn't seen it. I'm not a guy that's going to sit and wait in line at Sid Norman's all night.
Yeah, exactly.
You only got a little bit of time. ADD. I can't focus. There's too much going on. But going to see that show, I'm so happy they put it in that big theater because it was fantastic. I mean, that was fantastic. I'm going to go see that every time I go on that ship.
Yeah, and what I like about it is that the musicians are live. Like, nothing's tracked. It's just real, legit players. At least when I saw it on Aqua, it was.
That's the best part about cruise ships. You actually get live singing. You get people having a bad day. You know what I mean? You get people having the best day they've ever had, but it's live and raw and real, and it's right in front of you, and you can see how much passion they're putting into it and energy, and it's just fun all the way around. I just love cruising.
All right, well, let's talk about the sea days as far as crowds and congestion. And this sailing was a little bit different because y'all were trying to avoid the, I guess we'll call it the wake of a hurricane / tropical storm out there spinning around. So you spent 3 days in the harbor. What was that like, by the way? Because you were just like, you go to sleep in New York City, you wake up, and the next 2 nights you did the same thing.
So basically, that first night you went to sleep in the port. And that following night, you went to sleep in the port. But the following day, we went and sat in anchor out in the harbor because another ship was coming in. To be honest, it was fine. They did as good as they can with the crowds. Now, you remember, when you're in port and when you're sitting in the harbor, the casino's not open. None of the shops are open. It wasn't super hot outside. So you have a lot of the families, the kids don't want to be outside. So it did seem pretty crowded during those days at times when the weather wasn't cooperating outside. Yeah. Once the weather started getting a little bit nicer outside, all the kids and everybody was outside. And then once we got out of that harbor and opened the casino up and went right back to dispersing the crowds properly. But there was a little bit of congestion those first few days with the limited things to do because of the restrictions with the weather.
Yeah, in Anchorage, it'd be like, can we just go out 2 more miles so we can, get 3 miles offshore?
I was wondering, man. I was hoping we go north a little bit. I got a compass. We can try to figure this out.
Exactly. Very nice. So then how was the ship, though, as far as crowds and congestion making your way around it?
I didn't ever feel anything. The A-Tram would get crazy. I don't understand. NCL Escape does some of the action during the day in that center A-Tram area. And I just don't know why they don't utilize the theater more. And, it's easy for me to say, I'm sure there's a million rehearsals and things that are necessary to go on in there. But it just seems like when there's a lot of people on the ship, especially on a sea day, especially if it's not nice outside, they fill up those chairs. They put the folding chairs. It just gets very congested there. It only lasts for a little bit of while, and the crowd disperses quickly afterwards. But I just wish they had a better way to do it or was able to maybe have multiple things happening simultaneously. But that's, just like what we were talking about before, when they're consolidating some of what they're doing from an entertainment standpoint, I guess these are the repercussions.
Did you do the supper club?
I didn't. I did do the supper club. I couldn't stay. I had to go. I'm not the type of person to be negative about people doing their work and live performances. The young men that were doing the Michael Bublé, either there was a sound issue or wasn't the right. It just didn't work. It was a terrible show. I don't know why they put it up, and I couldn't stay. It was the supper club's a nice setup. There's nothing wrong with it. The food that they were having there was just one choice. Nobody seemed to really be blown away by it, but just the entertainment aspect wasn't there with this particular show. I can see with the right show, it being an entertaining place to go to.
It's like a cabaret style setup, right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. All right, so you leave Manhattan, you leave Anchorage, you're heading south towards the Bahamas. What was your first port of call? And give us the highlight there.
Okay, so we had 2 sea days in between going from leaving the anchor to going to Nassau. The ride down was nice. We didn't have really too many rough seas. I know there was some complaints from people. I don't know. I didn't ever really felt that way, but I cruise a lot, so maybe it was just something I didn't notice. And we went down to Nassau, and we actually did a food tour while we were there.
Is that the tour that does the stop where you go to the chocolate place inside of a hotel with a cellar?
It's by like a church mansion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was pretty cool. We went to John Watlin's rum distillery and tried some rum. We had fish tacos at one of these little local eateries. It was a fun thing to do. It was a little hot to do it that day because there was a little bit of walking involved. I've done this before in February, and it was more my speed with the temperature. But the food was good. It was informative. The people were nice. And it was a really nice day.
Yeah, Nassau gets a lot of crap. But if you find the right thing to do that suits you, you'll have a very nice day.
People hate on Nassau, and I get it. I get why, especially people that cruise that have been there 1,000 times. Mm-hmm. It gets very redundant, and there's not much going on. But I found that I like the food, trying some of the food that was there. I went there so many times without doing anything. Now that I've tried food a couple times there, I get off. I've went down to the Fish Fry, which is kind of a cool place to go to. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost too much to get down there, and you get to sample some of the local foods. It's kind of cool.
Speaking of staying on the ship, though, Great Stirrup Key was up next, and you kind of made it your own little sea day.
Yeah, listen, I went down to go, and it just looked very chaotic trying to go into the tender process. And we were supposed to have some type of priority tender process. It still seemed like it was chaotic. There was people coming back at the same time when the chaos of us trying to leave was happening. saying that it was impossible to get back and there was nowhere to sit. My wife decided that I was going to complain too much about nowhere to sit and chill. So she kept me on the ship, and we just had a nice day doing the ropes course and the water slides and all that kind of stuff.
This is the thing with NCL, okay? And I do like them, and I'll put that right there with Virgin, what I really do like, this cruise line. But they cannot get their stuff together when it comes to tendering. I've sailed NCL pretty much all over the world, and everywhere I've been, there was lines, and I think it was the Med, up to 3 hours to jump on the tender.
It's their first day with a tender ever. It always seems that way.
Yeah, it's always
their
day
first
one.
Day doing the process.
Right. It's so strange to me and bizarre. And by the way, I didn't ask you, though, the casino, as far as the smoke situation in and around it, do they have a separate smoking casino or a separate non-smoking? How is that laid out?
They have separate areas within the same casino. So it's not like one of the Joy has that glassed off separate area. It doesn't have anything like that. They have areas where you can, areas where you cannot. This ship, I don't know, it disperses the smoke better. I use the smoke. I don't anymore. It doesn't really bother me. My wife doesn't like it at all. Mm-hmm. And she's pretty much still able to walk through the casino and hang out like on the edges over by the Skyline bar with no issue. She didn't have any complaints. I mean, I'm sure there was some smoke, and you do have to walk through that area. I don't know if I'd want little kids doing it over and over again if they were mine. But overall, it wasn't too bad.
So you did Nassau, Great Stirrup, and you shot up to Bermuda. How was your day there?
Oh, the day was so nice. The weather was perfect. It wasn't too hot. Bermuda can get a little crazy with the heat. It wasn't too bad. We walked around the dockyard area, went to have a beer at the brewery that was there, went to walk to the little straw market mall that they have down there, and go look at some of the local stuff and buy little knickknacks for people at home. It was just a nice, relaxing day. Take photos, have a couple cocktails, leave the ship of free drinks to go buy drinks on the land. But somehow that's fun, and I like doing it.
Did you swing by that pirate ship this time?
We didn't do that this time. We went to the brewery, the brewery that's inside the dockyard.
After Bermuda, you make your way back up to New York. Now, I know you were staying in New York to kind of avoid the storm. Was the weather nice going back up there?
It really wasn't bad at all. In the end, everybody will have different opinions on if we should have left sooner or, if it was safer. I think that NCL had it right on this. That same day, I believe the day before, the Venezia left New York City, and I was in the cruise groups and Facebook on that, and there was just a lot of people complaining about getting sick on that ship and constantly having seasickness problems and just not being able to get to each of their ports on time. And it seemed to be a lot calmer on our cruise. So I really appreciate NCL, the way that they handled it. And they also offered us a 20% future cruise credit, mm-hmm. a 20% refund on the current cruise that we were on, and a $250 onboard credit, which really, in the end, was covering the drink taxes that we had to pay while we were in New York City on the drink package. Other than that, though, I thought it was pretty, they don't have to do anything, and they did something. So I thought I was appreciative of that.
With the comps aside there that they threw in for you, do you think the value was there for the price you paid?
For the price that I paid, I believe the value was there. I think cruising still has the best value mm-hmm. out there. I know that it's getting more expensive, but if you start comparing it to land-based vacations, I watched plenty of videos online of people trying to go to Disney and having a good time. And, you're talking about $1,700-$1,800 a day, even trying to do it, cheaply. In the end, I really think cruising is still by far the best value, bang for your buck out there for vacationing.
You get back into Manhattan, Pier 88. How was your debark?
It was actually pretty smooth. I'm always ready for chaos with New York City, but we got outside pretty quickly. Once again, like I said, my father-in-law Skip was there to pick us up and drive us back home. So that went real smooth. We got off quickly. There was a little bit of traffic, but it's New York City. And we got home within 2 hours of us getting picked up.
Any first-time tips to offer someone sailing Norwegian Escape?
Make sure that you do the specialty dining on this ship. Overall, it's worth it. Don't just stay focused on the free stuff. But if all you can afford to do the free stuff, that's great, because you're also going to have a great experience with food. If you're going to Nassau on the Escape or any other ship, to try a food tour. It's something that's really cool. A lot of people give Nassau a bad, they don't want to even get off the ship. They say it's dangerous. I've never had anything happen wrong there. I've always felt safe, and the people are nice. And it's just, make sure you try new things and have fun everywhere.
Did you book the food tour through the ship or third party?
We used, I believe, Viator.
Okay. There.
You find good deals sometimes, and they're pretty reputable. They have them in all the ports. I feel comfortable using them. Sometimes you find stuff that's half the price for the same exact thing.
Yeah, I've used Viator and Shore Excursions Group all over the world, like Hong Kong, Tokyo, like all random places I've used these companies. They're like well established, and some people are skeptical of using like Viator. I'm like, no, they're like a multi-million, probably billion-dollar company.
That's a huge. I wouldn't be scared to use them at all.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest highlight of this 10-night cruise for you?
The biggest highlight was how great the entertainment was, how great the people were on the cruise. Spice H2O parties, all their theme parties were excellent. It really was a great vibe. I really was appreciative of how well everybody handled the itinerary change and how much fun everybody had. It's just, I love cruising. I have nothing more to say.
And your final thoughts of Norwegian Escape?
Try the Escape. It's not one of the most brand new ships, but it has all the amenities that you're looking for. And you can probably find some of the cruises on a better price point because it's not one of those brand new huge ships.
All right. I've been talking with Jason about his 10-night sailing on Norwegian Escape down to the Bahamas. Jason, as always, great talking to you, my friend.
Nice talking to you too, Doug. Thank you.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,